Thanks for staying with us. You're watching The Bench, and the voices of two young ladies and two young men on the bench talking about Jumuiya East African Community and the totalitarian turn that is in effect in the region following the conclusion of the elections in Tanzania and the concerns that have been expressed by the latest, the African Union and the SADC community to the south. They are equally concerned about the state of democracy in the region. Tatiana is on my far right, Mohammed next to her, Grace Moshimiwa, and also Philip Pande on my immediate right, and in their esteemed company. Coming back home, Tatiana, Raila Odinga the late has been the constant factor in Kenya's political equation since 1997 when he first contested for the presidency. And he will be, for the first time, absent from the political scene in 2 years when we head to the ballot. How consequential will his absence be?
Very consequential, I think, and for many reasons. For one, I think the presence of the late Baba in the political scene in Kenya also shows us the same point that I was trying to illustrate earlier about, you know, the age of the political scene in Kenya and how that needs to be shifted. But also I recall in 2024 during the protests, we as young people said, we are the opposition now. And I don't think that's... Isn't it? Yes, that's what we said. And I don't think that's really changed because I think, you know, before his passing, Baba had aligned very closely with the regime in power. And this caused a lot of people to, you know, it lost him a little bit of popularity on that front. And I think with his passing, we were able to now zoom out and look at his life as a whole, as opposed to just a few, you know, decisions that he made. But with that said, as much as Baba has not only just been the opposition on the ballot for all these years, he has also always been the one to contest elections in the, you know, in the allegation or where, you know, there is a suspicion of electoral malpractice. And now that's going to change. Now we don't know who is going to actually contest election results in the event that people feel they have been cheated. So I feel like that is going to be an interesting thing to watch it play out. But I also think in terms of political alternatives, we are also very disillusioned, especially where it comes to the presidential seat. And that's just my opinion. Right now, I think there are over 10 people who have expressed their interest for presidency. So it's hard for young people to even know which direction they see the country going in terms of the executive office come 2027. And that might also be a contributing factor to the low numbers we are seeing in voter registration. Mine is to say to young people that it's not only about the executive, it's about your MCA, it's about your MP, and you said we'd have the conversation on parliament, but parliament exists to keep the executive in check. And I think in the course of this regime, we've been able to see, you know, the cost of having a parliament that is not independent in its decision making. So these are some of the issues that are there, and I'm very interested in seeing how the political scene is going to play out with the passing of Baba. Yeah,
and Mohammed, other than the politics of it, certainly the political room, when the political situation room will be filled, it will be certainly minus the voice that had always pulled the country back from the brink, is it?
Yes, and especially for a man who always gave up what was rightfully his in a couple of situations and took the back seat, took and accepted the shorter end of the stick, even when all of the odds were in his favor and all of the facts and numbers were in his favor. So I think, yes, that will be missing. And we'll likely see how that pans out after 2027. But I think that gap will not exist for long. I think there are a lot of capable politicians who will fill that gap in their own ways, different styles and all of those things. That vacuum will not exist even until 2027, I strongly think. There are people who are gearing up to fill that vacuum, people who are capable and who will fill that vacuum. Yes.
And how then consequential, the same as I did put to Tatiana, will his absence be?
Very. And as Tatiana, of course, equally says, that there is the absence of a recognizable political alternative, one that the country had known for a long time, an alternative that was known to fight for justice, an alternative that was known to be fighting for what is right in most of the instances, an alternative that was fighting for the common man. That alternative will now be missing. But I think that that the same calls, or at least those ideals, are ones that will continue to advance, that people will make an agenda out of those very ideals, out of the common interest of the people, the economy, working institutions, less corruption, a fairer taxation policy, and all of those things. So I think there'll be an agenda that will be set up. However, there is one thing that will be missing in that political calculations. He was a good enemy, because in an election you need an enemy and you need an agenda. So he was the enemy for a lot of the other politicians on the other side. So in the absence of Raila, the enemy, now we need to make an enemy. We need to say who are we fighting against. In the 2022 elections.
No more bogeyman.
Exactly. Yes. In the 2022 elections, we were given a new enemy, and we were told that our enemy was dynasty. There was an agenda as well, an agenda that is being implemented at the moment, but there was a good enemy. We were sold a good enemy, and the people who sold us that good enemy ultimately won the election. Now we will want to see who the enemy will be in 2020.
And Grace, many political parasites will fall off, right?
Definitely, definitely. Baba was one of that leader that people would love to hate and hated to love, you know, because he was such a voice. Growing up, like the reason, one of the things I keep on saying, if it was not for Baba fighting for democracy, personally I would have not ever won as an independent candidate. These are some of the things that, you know, even us being able to sit here and discuss politics, you know, and call out things, even on social media and all that, it's because of what he did. Forgetting him is going to be really, really hard for Baba in the world of politics. Now getting to know how politics works. Like you said, many parasites will fall off, especially those who never had their own backbone. It's going to be really hard to survive the 2027. Baba's legacy in terms of his zeal to fight, his way of, even the way he used to, you know, he would call out and people would come out in numbers. You know, not being paid. It's very hard for a politician to call people without paying them and, you know, coming out. It shows that he resonated with people. He spoke what's inside people's hearts, that most of them were afraid to voice it out. And the reason why we need to get to understand now in coming now to 2027, you've seen Baba, we've rested him, but you know, people are still mourning him, to be honest. Even personally myself, it's just sinking in, you know. Reason, because I know the impact that will be in 2027. Baba will definitely, he might not be alive, but 2027, he will still play a role. And the role that he will play is not the role of people who will go there and say, you know, from Baba, I need to be voted because, you know, I support Baba and all that. But in our political, because we've always known that it's going to be at the epicenter. That's why you see even right now people are like ODM, you know, the discussions is ODM. You see people are trying to penetrate, oh, this person must be removed, or this person, you know, is anti-ODM and all that, because they are trying to see how the party will be able to play a role. From where I come from, of course, we've been supporters of Baba a lot. You know, Kambani, like, you know, he has been there with our party leader, Kalonzo Musyoka. So these are the things that, you know, we are looking on how they are going to play, because we've always seen him as part of us. So definitely, we are still yet, I mean, the president also has keep on saying the only person who would have been on the ballot with him is Baba, but yet he does not understand Baba was made by the people. It was not the other way around. So the same people, they'll be able to create their another Baba you know, and be able to follow. That's one of the things that, you know, we need to get to understand.
Philip, and what role will tribalism play in the next election?
Well, Ayub, I'm really afraid that this election in 2027 is going to be quite tribal, in my view. Perhaps one of the most tribal elections in our recent history, because for far too long, nearly a quarter decade, we've been talking about an election against a particular candidate. Particularly, there is at least half of this country that has always gone to the ballot since 2007 to vote against Baba. Now, for the first time, he's not there. And so if you've been calling his name as a threat, as a perceived or a real enemy, then you have to really go and re-strategize. So that's going to be one of the greatest changes in our political equation, so that we move from the real enemy, the perceived enemy, the scapegoat, to issues. But I don't see us going to issues in the 2027 elections. It's going to be shouting at the highest or the top voices of community balkanization and more of tribal chauvinism on, you know, what do we sell as a region than the agenda, the national agenda. One of the significant things around the right Honorable Raila Odinga's life has always been fighting for a cause. We're talking about multipartyism, we're talking about devolution, we're talking about equity, we're talking about, you know, diversity and inclusion. We're talking about entrenchment of, say, CDA, for example, and ensuring that that goes to wananchi, just like the devolved funds. So in his absence, and I dare say that I've been a mentee of Baba, may his soul rest in peace. I've had an opportunity to work with him firsthand in the last election, and even after that when he was running for the AUC chairmanship position. His absence would be really felt in the next election. The other reason would be Baba was such a measured man, a moderate person, and he would calm a real storm. He would speak and people would listen to. And the way I see us speak as Kenyans sometimes is that we lack the voice of reason and we pull the trigger so much. There's going to be a day when, you know, there is no that higher sound, and there is nobody that is going to call a press conference in the morning to say stop. And so that has to be a reason for Kenyans to think twice on how we're going to handle the election and how the voting patterns would be. But tribalism has to really stop. The reason we have to stop tribalism is look at devolution. It does not require you to have any form of influence to get the equitable and the equalization, the equitable share of revenue for any county. You only go to the Constitution. The CRA would give you the formula. The Senate would be there to defend devolution. So what is the interest? Why is it that we have to speak as a community so that we are heard? Why don't we talk about the real issues? If it's road network, in which part of this country do we desire more? If it's education, in which part of this country do you desire more? We have things like the equalization fund. We know to who this is supposed to go, to the 20 counties and the net beneficiaries. So why don't we have a predictable election that centers around issues? And you look at the last election, Baba was quite focused on devolution, empowering and strengthening devolution. And he talked about ugatuzi la vijana, ugatuzi la kina mama, ugatuzi la kina, watu wa chini. Everybody with a specific issue that was supposed to be dealt with at the national level. What is the agenda in 2027?
What do you think is going to be the agenda?
We're talking about one term, we're talking about two term. It is going to be the person that shouts loudest that wins, and that is going to be about more tribal balkanization. It's going to be about that person that would have the masterstroke to inherit Baba's support base.
Who can that be in your view?
We have quite a number of options. Some of them are perfect mentees of Baba, very young, born in the 80s, like I say, born in the 70s, born in the 90s. And I think the real issue should be looking at the alternative voices than the current crop of competitors. I think we really need to shift that, and it has to be a radical shift.
Tatiana, whatever the outcome in 2027, it's going to be the last representation of the old political face, isn't it? So what's the future post-2027 for Kenya's young population? All of us seated here. And as Philip points out, then how do we going forward address the problem of tribalism?
It's hard to look at the future beyond 2027, I must say. I think for all of us on this bench. And it's true that 2027 is not a finish line in and of itself. And when we talk about alternatives, I think we've talked a lot about the political alternatives and the power vacuum that's been left. I think there's a need for unity among whatever the opposition is of today, rather than have this fragmented opposition. Even I would dare say as a movement, sometimes we can be very fragmented, very much centered on outbursts rather than playing the long game. I've been trying to crunch my head about why do people write their obituaries before coming out to protest, but they don't want to come out to register to vote. It's that outburst, it's that fragmentation. And so I think young people right now are very interested in value-based and issue-based. Issue-based, yes, but value-based leadership. We just need a consolidated force, you understand, rather than having 1,000,001, options. And I understand that it's still a bit early, and so many of the people that we are hearing today want to come up and take the position. It's very likely that they'll not even be on the ballot in 2027. But I think as we go up to that, let's ask not what these leaders say they will do, but what they have done, And I think it's really giving us a challenge to break out of politics as we know it, to break out of the same faces, the same names that we are so used to seeing, and actually give some fresh voices a chance. As for beyond 2027, it's really hard to say, but I think young people actually have the power to turn the tables around completely. Yeah. It's just, how do we approach that? Do we approach that objectively? We had the former deputy president today telling young people the same. That brings me back to the question of not what have you said you will do, but what have you done before? So as for what's going to happen post-2027, that's very difficult for me to answer, because I feel like the answer to that question lies in what we do leading up to the day.
But you can feel the air is filled with
something different is going to happen, something unlike we've ever seen before.
Yes. Mohammed, how ideologically should young Kenyans be in terms of difference to the current political establishment and the elite? What is it that you folks will bring on the table to seek the mandate, which will be in contrast very different from what the likes of our current president and the crop of leadership we have been presenting to the populace for some time now?
I think I take a slightly different position.
Yes, please.
And I want to say, yes, you're asking me what do you need to sell, or what do you need to convince people?
And how different will you be ideologically?
Exactly. I think for any person to come out an outsider, a person who is an outsider as of today, a young person who is an outsider, and to have a chance to win the election in 2027, you have to have extreme views, whatever those views are, or extreme ideals. Let people call them as idealistic as possible. Dream, sell us a future. When they're selling us a resume and they're telling us, this is what I've done before, this is what I have done, this is what I've been doing, sell us, this is what I will do. This is what the future looks like. Sell us that future and let it be as rosy as possible. And I think don't listen to any of how will you achieve them and all of those things. So I think Kenyans and electorates will buy into a very rosy picture. Sell that rosy picture. Secondly, I think that rosy picture has to have a foundation. The foundation needs to be an agenda. Few as much as possible. A max of 3-4 things which could rally a lot of young people around. And I think the economy working, which will ultimately lead to jobs and stuff like that, I think is very important. Something like taxation. I have a big issue with over-taxation and taxation that is not predictable and things like that. So affordability of something like healthcare and education. So I think, number one, sell a rosy picture. Let us dream. We have not dreamt for a long time. We've just been told this is how we do things. We do not want this is how we do things. We want to say this is the future this country needs and this is the future we're going to give you. Have an agenda, max 4-5 things which you can rally people around. If possible, before you get to the election, ostracize as many people as possible. The normal understanding in politics is build coalitions. But I want to say you're coming in as an outsider. Young people are coming into this election as an outsider. Do not build coalitions until after the elections. Ostracize everybody. Get the job done. Then, when it comes to how now do we execute, build coalitions after that, having gotten the upper hand.
Yeah, and will that then address the problem of political baggage and the constant award of incompetence as we had seen with this administration?
If you're coming as an outsider and you're selling us as a rosy picture, you do not have the problem of this political baggage. The people who will have the political baggage are the people who are selling us their resumes, people who are selling us their CVs. Let them deal with that political baggage. If there is anybody to come and sell us a future, it needs to be someone with as minimal political baggage as possible.
Okay. Grace, ideologically, how different are you from the current state of the political establishment?
One of the things when it comes now to when we're looking at the 2027, to be honest, everything we were sold for 2022, it was very rosy. You know, it was very rosy. You know, we are going to be millionaires. You know, we are going to get houses. You know, we're going to get electric bikes. What was the other thing? You know, it was, you know, from bottom up. You know, there were so many things that we were sold at as Kenyans, and people saw, you know, there was a future. We were sold also Singapore. Today we are being sold about Singapore. You know, so there are so many things as Kenyans we've been told. So come 2027, I don't think Kenyans will be, you know, will be dumb enough to repeat the same mistake twice. There's no any politician who will come out here and start selling things that actually they do not exist, because they'll be like, no, we were once here. 2022, but it never happened. So for come 2027, all leaders need to do is be very realistic. And even as right now as you are speaking, any leader who cannot express the joy of the Kenyans, who cannot express the pain of Kenyans, who cannot express and represent their people, because don't forget, us as elected, either as MCA, member of parliament, you know, as senators, they are supposed to defend the electorate, not to defend the executive. And this is the reason why you see most of the counties, there's no development. Why? And I'm sorry to say this, we also have some young people in our county government, you know, but they've already been subjected, or rather they've chosen, because I keep on telling even young people, it's not about being young that will be elected. Also your character will come into place. Because, you know, you cannot be bought, or the cases that we've had even in the parliament. I mean, we also have young MPs, you know. Have we heard their voices speaking on behalf of us as the young people? Have we heard their voices speaking on behalf of the electorates or Kenyans? So these are the things that come 2027 you need to come and look up to. It will not be just about age. Now we'll be looking, are you able to speak for the people? Because, you know, there are separations of powers. When it comes to the members of parliament, they cannot be defending the government. They cannot defend the executive. The executive is the president, the deputy president, and the CSSs. Those are the executive. When it comes to the county government, MCAs, they are not allowed to defend the governor. They are not allowed to defend the deputy governor. They are not allowed to defend the waziris in the counties. As if you're elected as a member of county assembly or a member of parliament, and senator, it's your work to defend the people. But what currently as a country we are going through, we've elected people who are actually in bed with the same oppressors that, you know, they are not, and even right now we've been seeing, you know, they will be, the government will be coming and say, oh, this area you are not part of us, you know, you never voted for us, so we are not going to do development for you. Or even you hear the governors, I mean, a classic case, we had, you know, a governor saying, mkichagua mtu ambaye si wetu atuwafanyii kazi. So those are some of the things that comes into place, and we are like, come 2027, we cannot have leaders who are blaming other leaders. Okay. We need to hear leaders who are actually representing the people. Until that time, as Kenyans, we'll be able to see, yes, this person defends me. That's the time as a country we'll be able to see our leadership system change.
Yeah. And time for blame game is over, is it, as we head into 2027, Philip?
Sure it is, and I believe that we all have an opportunity, Ayub, to contribute into developing this country. Tatiana says that it's difficult to think beyond 2027. I believe one of the most fundamental things we have to do is think of Kenya beyond 2027.
Do you see the promised land?
I see it every day. And Ayub, I was just looking at my calendar, and my countdown shows me that it's about 643 days to the next election. And I'm confident that that election would change this country, would transform this country, would have more young people into the spaces, ask us about the philosophy, ask us about the ideology and the difference we want to make. I keep insisting, Ayub, that there is nobody that has contributed more than the young people of Kenya have contributed into developing this country. We talk about cessation of paper 10, Tom Mboya and Kibaki, aged 33 and 31. Gave us a document that helped plan this country until at least 2008, when we had the Vision 2030 come in. Now, the Vision 2030 is expiring in under 5 years. We're implementing the last medium-term plan 4. If you listen to the president speak at the Right Honorable Raila Odinga's funeral, he says that the Prime Minister was more concerned about how to leapfrog Kenya from a third world nation, a newly economy, into what we're calling a modern world or a first world economy. And what this means is that just as like we have the Socio-Economic Council established by the NAC government to come up with the Vision 2030, the Prime Minister was going to chair a Socio-Economic Council to help us transform Kenya beyond the Vision 2030. So what have we to do? Is that the young people with our creativity, Kenyans uniting for development, for a more prosperous future, must talk about planning post Vision 2030. And so that the president, as a legacy to the former prime minister, must establish that council. And I know that plans are underway to help have a succession plan in the event of planning for development. That is where we have to concentrate, so that much as we've had very difficult past, very difficult times, building Kenya, making Kenya make sense to everyone. I believe that a plan such as the Vision 2030 that is more looking into the future, that is looking at education, skills development for young people, that is looking at labor policies and labor migration laws that are more friendly to our people, then would establish a young Kenyan to be more successful and more competitive in the global stage. And this is why we have to give priority to digitization, to labor mobility, and to young people moving across the globe. Because we've talked about an African population that is going to be at least 30% of the global labor market, or contributing at least 30% of the global wage or workforce. How are we able to ensure that Kenyans today, we talk about the Silicon Savannah, we talk about an enterprising population that is already transforming the world. How do we send that population to influence the world to solve local problems? And how do we successfully ensure that everybody becomes part of the discussion and not just a political elite?
Yeah. Before we sample the yes, Mohammed.
If I could add a little bit to that. Philip raises a very good, valid point of who is thinking for Kenya beyond 2030. Vision 2030 is coming to expire. I want to be a bit very hopeful and to report to you that recently I took part in a discussion of Kenyans, cross-cut from a cross-section, who were thinking for Kenya 2063.
Yes.
This team of Kenyans sat down. Very impressive. One of the most impressive things and they were planning and thinking about what will Kenya be when it turns 100 years old. And they were examining 4 different situations. One, will Kenya be a triumphant story when it turns 100 years old? Will Kenya be one of an ascendant Kenya when it turns 100 years old? Will Kenya be a stagnant Kenya when it turns 100 years old? Or will Kenya, God forbid, be imploding when it turns 100 years old? And I want to say that if those discussions keep going on, and I can confirm that they'll keep going on ultimately until we have a Kenya Vision 2063, that Kenya will probably be a very triumphant country if we keep those discussions and asking ourselves, what are we doing wrong? What could we improve? What is the future like? What are we aspiring? What are our young people wanting? And how do we move this country? So I think there is a good section of Kenyans who are thinking for Kenya.
Yeah, and Tatiana, it takes bold leadership, is it, to get there, to get it done. And Singapore has been quite a good example. But who today in Kenya's political arena has, let's say, 30 to 40% of the attributes of Lee Kuan Yew, who developed Singapore?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to ask, and I think it brings us back to the conversation we were having about painting rosy pictures and forming, I wouldn't want to call it coalitions, but to say that there's a necessity to consolidate. And I think I'm not the one to say, but Kenyans are the ones to say in the end. And it's very hard for Kenyans to make a decision with maybe 12, 13 people on the ballot, all going for the same position. The issue with painting a rosy picture is that, as Grace so well put it, we've been there before. As Kenyans, we are not new to lies from the political class. So I think it's important that as we try and answer that question, who in the political space is going to, take Kenya forward? It's important to look at issues, the way you said it, and values as well. And as we look forward of 2027 and even forward of 2063, one thing remains for certain, that without empowering young people, without placing young people at the center of policy making, then we are letting ourselves down as a nation. Because young people are our biggest resource at the moment. We are very active, very clever. I don't think, I think this is the first time in the history of the world that we've had the same access to information, that we have, the same sharing of ideas. And with that comes a lot of energy that has nowhere to go. And that's why you find people, wanting to cross over to Tanzania to help them with Mandamano, because they have that energy and nothing, to do with it. Have you ever gone to town on any given weekday? Just see the amount of people seated at archives, just seated there, really not much they are doing. So if a protest erupts in town, they are going to be there because they have nowhere to channel their energy, their frustration. Similarly, there's no one that young people can easily say they want to rally behind. So I think there's a lot to be done in terms of organizing. We need to figure out, what are people on the ground saying? What do people on the ground want? And who is it that can actually represent our interests? But with that said, I want to also divert that attention from just talking about the president and from the executive as well, and just say that who we elect matters at every stage, whether it's your women's rep, whether it's your MCA, whether it's your MP, who you elect matters at every stage. And we need to think about it that way as well.
So let's sample the feedback and see what Kenyans are saying as well, who have been part of this conversation.
Can I defend the rosy picture in 1 minute?
Yeah,
in 1 minute. Yes. Thank you very much.
In that case, I also have to say something.
Everyone has and will, yes. But Grace will be prioritized, yes.
Thank you very much. One, my idea of this rosy picture does not equate to lies. It doesn't say sell the people extreme lies that you cannot implement. A rosy picture, let's say, that was sold to us in 2022 could be affordable housing. What we young people need to understand is elections must be won. We might be very idealistic and everything else, but elections must be won. So those rosy pictures which we were sold in 2022 won an election. Some of those rosy pictures, when those positions became untenable, the administration could abandon them. It's okay, it's the art of politics. But the first part of an election is to win it. So regardless, young people, we must win an election. Do everything possible, win the damn election. And then after that, if some positions become untenable, re-strategize. Get back to the drawing table, go back to your coalition, and then move from those positions which are untenable. But sell the people a future. Sell the people a dream. Kenyans want to dream. They want to dream of a Kenya that works for every Kenyan.
Yes, Chris.
One of the questions is, they said like anyone who, out of the aspirants who want to run for 2027 for the presidential level, one of the things we need to come, before we even talk about the presidential level, we need to start, like Tatiana said, every leader out of the 6 ballots, they do matter. They do matter. So even as we go there, it's very important, even as us as young people and Kenyans, to understand the roles of each and every ballot that you are going to vote for, so that you don't get on blaming, oh, so-and-so is not delivering yet, then they are doing their work, it's just another certain leader who's not actually doing their part. So that being number one, getting to get the roles of all the leaders we are getting to elect. Out of the 13 leaders, let's not keep on saying, you know, I want to defend my friend here said, you know, the crop of leaders who have come out. You know, it will be very not nice, you know, that's the same sentiments we had from the president, you know, saying, you know, wale watu wa opposition wana akili, you know, those are statements that, you know, you kind of wonder, because these are people who have actually, they're leaders who have followers, you know, and it's very important that we get to know, yes, they'll bring their candidate as a party of ODM, and also for on our part, like I'll say for Wiper Party, we have our own presidential candidate, so and the other parties and all that. So it's for Kenyans to come and understand who actually represents them, who actually has their ideal, their ideal Kenya. How do they want to see Kenya in the next 5 years before 2032 appears? And every single Kenya will be given the opportunity at the ballot to pick who, because we cannot keep on saying one term. Yes, it's one term for those who are saying one term, it's 2 term for those who are saying 2 term. But if the ones for the 1 term, you have an option to vote for who you feel like this person represents me. So that 2027, people don't can say, there were never options. Yeah, definitely we'll have options for 2027.
Okay, so let's see what Kenyans are saying on Twitter. Engineer Lazaro says, youth's place voting card has power to hire or fire bad leaders. The only constitutional way of sending dictators packing is by voting them out. Please turn out and register as voters in large numbers. We explored that. Mbugwasa says, for us to be safe in our country, we must be part of the change that we want. We will contest for those positions and bring the change that we want. Young people will not be humiliated or blackmailed going forward. We have the numbers and strategies to change Africa for a better living. Ian says, Mheshimiwa is right. We are not stupid and we are also playing our cards too. Honestly, the system is shaking. They might act like they don't care about the movements of the youth, but watch the parliamentary team, the bills. Orutwasam says, let the young people know that we can't bring any changes in leadership if we let people who are less informed do elections for us, while the educated are very busy to elect credible people into authority, because it's what determines success. Wanjiru says, it's more than protest, it's now online civic language. Digital solidarity crosses borders fast, memes move minds, and hashtags spark hope. Gen Z solidarity / advocacy holds and leaders accountable. And Danata says, what Mohammed has said might be changed during the December holiday. Many will go for registration since the highest population of those who are living in towns and Gen Zs are millennials who will not risk to stay in towns during the voting period. We got you. RM_Kiberenge says, in Africa, there is no difference between elections and military or civilian coups, because in practice, both of them produce the same outcomes. In both cases, power is grabbed by force and there is bloodshed. Then it says, I tell African rising youth that the future is in their hands. Shape it in such a way that you will put a smile on your face days to come. Dennis again says, I tell the African rising youth, I think this is a repeat of the same. Monica, we move on. Yes, Ras says, at Grace Bahati, you are doing good representing young people and leading Mwananchi in Machakos County. So that is appreciation there. Jethro says, why are children against their leaders or parents in politics? Which country do we have young people in high offices and old at home, or wherever please, young generation? Our president is relatively young. So, well, you can respond to that?
Yeah. And that's the thing I keep on saying, you know, it's not about someone who's young. It's about the character of that individual. We have young people in leadership, you know, and when you interact with them, you can actually tell they do not care about our fellow young people. It's what they get for the bag. It's for the bag for them. It's not about developing our country. We can have even someone in the 90s, even someone, any one of us can be voted for, you know, as a president. But do we have what it takes to lead a nation? So it's not about being youthful. And this, I think, even young people, as we go to the ballot, it will not you'll not be voted for your age. Even our voters, our own parents, they will judge us. Is this person able to lead us as an MCA? Is this person able to lead us as an MP? Is this person able to lead us as a senator? So it's not about our, because of course, like he said, our president is young, but everyone right now is complaining.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Ayub, if I may. While I think that representation does matter, it matters if you have young people in government, and I always say this, and I've said it before, it's not really about counting young people, but about making young people count. And by having young people that count, their voices count. But it's also about those who are in power having policies, having ideologies that actually support young people, that place young people at the center of everything. Because we account for majority of the population. And without sufficient investment and without sufficient opportunities in our way, then, you know, we run the risk of losing out on the tremendous potential that Kenya has.
Yes.
Maybe to add, Ayub, and respond to Jethro, that talking about, like I began saying, we're talking about reparative justice, and especially on youth inclusion and youth engagement. So why is it so that in the independence cabinet, we had about 30% composed of young people under the age of 35? Why do we have, at 2007, 2008, young people under the age of 35 making it to cabinet? And while we had the, you know, perhaps the most difficult stretch and intense pressure from the young population, then we don't include them at the cabinet level. And most recently, we only have one young PS at the under 35 included among over 60 principal secretaries. Why is it that IBC, for example, had a very unique opportunity to make one of the commissioners, the selection panel, had an opportunity to make one Chacha from Korea, who has been a volunteer, a young person working for the commission over, you know, the last period of 3 years or so.
But the poll body's vice chairperson is also
relatively, we'd say. But a commissioner that was significantly the representation and the voice of the youth missed the opportunity. So what are we saying? That in reforming institutions, that in planning for this country, that in being more inclusive, we must dare listen to the voices of young people. And that is not by chance. It's by the fact that we want to be more intentional in decision making. We want to be more intentional in planning for the very young people.
Moses says the young generation also want to get things given to them easily, and yet their ID cards are not being collected from registration centers. How can they register as voters? How true is this?
I'll allow Grace to go first.
Being on the ground, one of the issues we've had, first the IDs were really delayed. So to a point that, you know, there are a couple of weeks. I mean, we hear even the communications from the administration, so to speak, assistant chiefs and the chiefs, you know. So once you delay a young person, because most of them probably they even had to go to school, you know, they had to go and look for other, because they will not just sit in the house and wait for IDs for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, surely. So we hope that during this season, holiday season, like just one of the commenters said, that now they'll be able to pick their IDs and they'll be able to register. One of my nephews actually did apply for the ID, and that was like, what, 3 months ago, and yet the ID is not yet out. So even from just in my own in-house, I can tell there have been delays. So even these issues, maybe right now is when they've come, but there've been a delay for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start here.
Yeah, mine is just to say, let's not always point the finger at young people, but actually talk about what are some of the barriers that young people are facing. Because without an ID, it's not even just about registering to vote. There is so much that you cannot do as an ID. As you don't even exist as a Kenyan if you're an adult without an ID. And there's actually a lot of documentation going on by civil society organizations, and even Grace can maybe even take the initiative to amplify further the discrepancies around ID applications, collection, dispatch. There's a lot of discrepancies around that, and we need to have that conversation just as seriously as we take the conversation of voter registration.
The next is from Mukhtar Khalif, Wajir County. Says, 1, how comes the youth are yet to register as voters, or they are waiting for politicians to seduce them to register? 2, you think we can have a political party for Kenyan youth which engulfs all and sundry? 3, do you think the youth can erase the syndromes of tribe and forge United National Youth Forum to take over governance? Mohammed. 3 questions in one.
Okay. So how comes the youth are yet
waiting
to
for
register?
politicians to seduce you to register?
I don't think young people are waiting for anyone to seduce them to register. They're just waiting for, 1, the necessary documentation to come from the national government, that is registration services, for them to get their IDs, and then they'll turn up and vote. They also expect to be civically educated about the importance of voting, the importance of getting their voter's card, the importance of going out to the ballot, the importance of the whole electoral process. So they want a bit more civic education and access to those documents.
Can there be a political party for the youth?
There can be. I would not propose it. I do not think it's a decent idea. Get a party that can speak to everyone. You want voters from every cross-section of society. So let's just have an agenda. Let's have an understanding of what we are standing up for. The party is just a tool.
Yeah. Question number 3 was the main on which you addressed. Do you think, Grace, this is to you, the youth can do away with syndromes of tribe and forge a united front?
One of the things I love about us as our now current youth, we are not, like we say, we are tribeless. That's one of the things that I'm actually very grateful, because I've never been a place where, I've been judged of where I come from. The only thing I know, and I'll be very honest, our country, we are very, when it comes to votes, we are very regional. I would say tribal, we are very regional, and that's why you hear politics ni hesabu, like it's about the numbers, and that's why you'll hear their coalitions. You'll hear let's say party A and party B. Let's give you an example. Now we have ODM and UDA. They're in they're working together. Now you'll see that we have Wiper. You'll see we have DCP, DAP. All of that coming together, because the reality is you can never win an election as an individual party. Yes, you can win. I mean, UDA won as a party, but yet it had to do coalition with other leaders from other regions. So it's not about tribe, it's about the regional numbers of voters bases,
Okay, the next one is, we have 2 more to go. Churchill Omondi says, tonight's caucus has reminded me of a famous book by Joseph Conrad, Into the Footsteps of Mr. Katz, where a European explorer is extremely bamboozled by how fellow Africans can be brutal against each other several decades later. So much that is that, yes. Your final comments, Tatiana.
Oh, mine is just to say, go out and register to vote. The future is ours. We just have to claim it. I'm hoping that we can elect leaders who are value-based, who are talking to us on a basis of issues, and who are ready to place young people front and center, because it's high time we place people front and center.
Okay. Yes, Mohammed.
Going into the 2027 elections, let's get an outsider who is not bagged by previous political baggage. Let's get an outsider who has a backbone, someone who stands up for things that we want across the country. I stand by my sentiments. Let's Let's sell as rosy a picture as possible. Let Kenyans dream of a country that is prosperous, a country that is working for each and everybody. Young people, also a bit of reality check. We need to win an election. So let's do everything possible, everything legal to win the election. Once you have a say at the table and once you're in control of the elements of power, then you can dictate the direction the country will take.
Yes, Grace.
For me, I'll just tell Kenyans that there is still hope for a beautiful Kenya. There is still hope. There is still love within each other, as just among each other as Kenyans. There is still hope in leaders who can lead our nation. There is still hope that 2027, we shall come out strong. We look forward for a peaceful election. We look forward for Kenyans' voices will be heard. What I can say, look for the leaders who are actually speaking your language, who are there to defend you, who are there to represent you and not to represent the government. So Kenyans, let's come out, get your voters card. Let's wait for 2027. Let's go at the ballot. Let's march, and make sure that we make Kenya a greater Kenya, not just for us, but our future generations to come. And definitely, we do have leaders who are there to represent us come 2027.
Yes, Philip.
Thanks, Ayub. And in joining voices with my colleagues, I would want to look at Kenya and our progress in two aspects and in two lessons that the former Prime Minister did look at it. One, that in the long term, let us plan more effectively beyond the demographic dividend for the youth in Kenya, but for posterity. Kenya's 2063 and what post-vision 2030 would look like. The second thing is we look like still scouting for a young candidate to run for presidency. I'm saddened that some of us that have the capacity that we believe in could make the transformation are still shooting below par, and we are not confident enough to approach the presidential seat. I believe we could gather that confidence, that even in terms of building a legacy for Kenya in the absence of the former Prime Minister, as we talk about we Raila Odinga fellows or mentees, what about a legacy that lives to his life, that dares to challenge status quo, that dares to ask for more accountability, not just at the national level, but at the devolved sub-national levels as well.
Much appreciated, ladies and gentlemen. Many thanks for your presence here. It's 9 minutes to midnight, but of course worthy, given that we are discussing the future of our country. Absolutely. Appreciate it. Tatiana, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Asante sana. Karibu tena. Mohammed, as always, a pleasure. Grace, asante sana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Philip, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Great having you here. Your company is appreciated and very valuable. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And thanks to you too for keeping us company here on the bench. Of course, young voices, as given the country is young and the future is young and looks so promising with, of course, proper planning. Your contributions to this country's growth, to prosperity are immense, and our country is great. Many thanks for your company, always cherished. And I'll see you in under 6 hours' time on Daybreak in the morning at 6 a.m. Till then, good night and God bless you.